What is this? This in JavaScript feels weird sometimes, and there's also binding. Why do we need to bind things? But it's actually not so difficult if you remember a few things. Number 1. This always refers to the object that is executing the function. By default, this is the global object. We haven't defined a global object here, so here it's an empty object. In the browser, it's the window object. Here we have a sandwich object. It has a filling, which is hummus, and a method on it called eat. If your function is a method on that object, then this always refers to that object. So if we call sandwich.eat, then we see hummus printed out in the console. You can also use a constructor function to create a new object, and this is the new object created. Let's assign sandwich.eat to an eat function and call it again. Wait, what? We get undefined! Why is that? This is where rule number 2 comes in. This always refers to the context where the function is being called, not the context where the function is defined. Let's rewrite eat function so you can see what's happening when we create eat function. It takes a sandwich eat method and makes it a function in its own right, not a method attached to the sandwich object anymore. We're no longer inside the sandwich object, we're inside the global object, and the global object doesn't have a filling. And this is where binding comes in. Here we are binding the sandwich object to eat function. We are saying that this is always going to be the sandwich object for eat function. Let's look at another example here. I've added an array of salad items and an assemble method which maps over the items and console logs the filling along with the salad item. This prints undefined because the callback function is a function in its own right, not a method on a sandwich object. So there is no filling. However, we can add this as a parameter to the callback and then filling will be defined. In addition to bind, you can also use the call keyword in JavaScript to pass an object into a function when you are calling it. Apply is the same as call, but you can also use it to pass in an array of parameters. But why is this a thing? Why do we need this in JavaScript? The reason we use the this keyword in JavaScript is because JavaScript can be used in an object-orientated or a function-orientated way. Functional languages have no use for this or self because they don't deal with objects. But if we're using objects in JavaScript, then we need to know which object we're dealing with. Let's recap. Number 1. This always refers to the object that is executing the function. 2. This always refers to the context where the function is being called, not the context where the function is defined. 3. Use the bind, call and apply keywords to bind your functions to objects.